This video is brought to you by Rage. No, I'm just kidding. Kind of. In today's video, we are going to be tackling all the red flags and tricks that you should be looking out for when you are shopping for new luggage. And I'm gonna be real with you. Like most of my best creations, this video is very much motivated by spite. Because as someone who recently went luggage shopping, I have to tell you, I was so enraged by all the different tricks and traps and things that companies will tell you just to make a sale. And I don't want anybody to waste their money, so the idea for this video was born. Be sure to stick around until the end for a free checklist and shopping guide that you could bring along with you to help you avoid all of these traps. Now, in case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com, and this is my packing channel that is dedicated to practical travel advice that is tried, honest, and true. So be sure to like and subscribe if that sounds like your kind of thing. And if you have a particular luggage brand or suitcase that you are obsessed with, please sell it to me in the comments because I am always looking for new recommendations, and I'm sure the other people who are creeping in the comments would very much appreciate that as well. Now, let's get started with red flag number 1, which is very much the red flag that inspired this video, and that is any company that has a tag on their bag that says carry-on approved. Because honestly, what does that even mean? As I said, I saw this while I was shopping recently, and it genuinely made me super mad because I was just imagining a newbie traveler going to buy a suitcase, seeing this tag and assuming, oh, well, it says carry-on approved, so this can get on the flight no matter what. That is obviously not true, because if you are familiar with my videos or if you've flown at all in the past few years, you will know that every single airline has different restrictions when it comes to their carry-on baggage. So it doesn't matter if this random tag on a piece of luggage says that it is carry-on approved. That is going to depend very much on individual airlines. So really, when you see a tag like this that is just super vague and says, okay, it's carry-on approved, that really should tell you that the company doesn't really know what they're talking about or they're intentionally trying to deceive. Neither of which are good things. Next up, tricky trial periods or quote-unquote money-back guarantees. Now, a lot of companies these days are going to offer things like free trials or money-back guarantees, especially direct-to-consumer brands like the ones that predominantly sell online. And they do use this trick because it lulls you into a false sense of security, right? Because, well, why wouldn't I buy this $500 suitcase if I always have the option to send it back if I don't like it? Now, I'm not saying that all money-back guarantees and trials are traps, but you very much need to read the fine print to understand what these terms actually mean. Because very often you're going to see things like 100-day guarantee and your brain is going to make the very logical jump that, oh, I have 100 days to actually test this out, and if I don't like it, I can return it, no questions asked. But if you dig into the terms and conditions, very rarely are these no questions asked policies. I mean, they're not Costco. Costco. Honestly, if you want to shop for luggage, shopping for luggage at Costco is not a bad idea, especially if you're looking for something with a very easy return policy. Gosh, I am really starting to sound like my parents. So I'll pull up some examples from some really popular brands. So with Monos, for instance, what they say is they require clear photos of the luggage to confirm that it is in brand new, unused condition with all original packaging intact. And they also say, please note that the trial will be voided if the suitcase shows signs of use in transit or is returned in unsaleable condition. So really, all that 100-day trial is that you have 100 days to put some stuff in it in your own home and roll it around. So that to me doesn't feel the same as a true 100-day guarantee. But I don't want to just pick on Monos here because it's not just them, it is most of the companies that offer this kind of promise. July, for instance, says in their terms and conditions that the products must be unused in their original condition and in their original packaging. And they also say returns will be processed with a fee of 10% of items value. This will be deducted from your final refund. So that to me isn't a full refund. They literally say that they're going to take 10% of the price away just as a return fee. So yeah, really look into the fine print. Away also only accepts returns for unused items. And I don't begrudge them for that. It makes sense. They don't want people to just buy a suitcase, use it for one trip and then return it immediately. But I think a lot of people don't realize this when they are buying. So just be very aware of those terms and conditions before you commit. Now, on a similar note is anything that talks about a lifetime warranty or free repairs. Because honestly, any company can just tell you that they have a warranty program, so the specifics here really do matter. Very often, what warranties will cover is just the manufacturer's faults. So they will not cover any damage that's caused by what they deem to be user error. And so this is a very intentionally vague way that they present it to you because honestly, if you think about it, a company can very easily just say, well, you weren't meant to use it like that, so it's not our fault, we're not going to fix it. And so there's a very big difference between a lifetime warranty that they actually act on and are active with executing repairs for, and a lifetime warranty that they're just not really going to honor. And based on reviews that I've read, there is a very big difference between companies and how much they honor their warranties. So really seeing that this lifetime warranty or warranty exists is simply not enough. You really do need to take the extra step in research and kind of assemble stories from people who have actually tried to get repairs done through their warranty. Because very often these stories are incredibly telling. My personal favorite place to look for these stories is, I have a few spots. So the first one is Reddit. And Reddit, because it's essentially an anonymous forum, people have very little motivation to just lie about their experiences. So these stories tend to be quite unfiltered and they don't hold anything back. So it's good to get that honesty. On a similar note, YouTube comments tend to be a goldmine of info. I say this all the time, but yes, YouTube videos are great. I obviously like making videos for YouTube, but where the real knowledge is in the comment section, because a lot of the time, especially when it's unboxing or review videos, especially if they're sponsored, yeah, the videos are good at showing you an overview of that product, but very often what's going to happen is in the comment section, that's going to be where all the people who have bought that product or had a problem with that product, that's where they're going to chime in, because hell hath no fury like a commenter scorned. I swear people love to let you know when things have not gone right for them, and you can really use that to your benefit. So make sure you're always looking in the comment section as well, anytime you're looking up a specific product, because that is going to be where you actually find the good stuff. And by combining the video and the comments, you tend to get a more balanced overview of what that product is actually going to be like. Now, the next one, this might be a little bit controversial, but for me, it's any luggage companies that specifically sell you on the fact that their bags are lightweight. And feel free to disagree with me in the comments, but my personal opinion is if the only selling point of a luggage piece is that it's lightweight and there's no other factors that are clearly drawing you towards that bag, then you might want to look into other options. Granted, I don't have a ton of experience with ultra lightweight pieces, so feel free to chime in the comments if you think I'm wrong. But to me, there is a comfort in knowing that my suitcase is quite sturdy and that it's able to withstand certain wear and tear. Like if you're checking it in, you want to know that it's going to be able to withstand the weight of other bags on top of it. And to me, when a bag is marketed as ultra lightweight, there's obviously going to be certain concessions that are made to ensure that it is lightweight. So in the material, perhaps maybe it's going to be thinner or it's a lighter, less durable material. So because a lot of the time these bags will only save you a few pounds, like it doesn't feel worth it to me, the trade-off that your bag is not going to be as sturdy. And I get it. These days, airlines are so greedy. They are starting to weigh bags so much more than ever. And so I understand if you feel like every pound counts. But in my opinion, I keep saying that because I feel like people are going to get angry at me for this opinion. But in my opinion, if weight does matter to you that much, then maybe you should just look into a more lightweight solution rather than a suitcase. Maybe look into something like a duffel or a backpack, because then you're going to actually save a more meaningful amount of weight compared to just a few pounds. All right, the next red flag to look out for, very, very important, okay? It is any useless to you features. I firmly believe that when it comes to luggage, simple is best. At the end of the day, these things are merely boxes with wheels and zippers that you put stuff in, right? Any more complicated than that, when they try to get too fancy with stuff, to me, that's just more opportunities for things to break, for things to malfunction and go wrong. So really, a lot of the companies that focus on these brand new shiny features, I don't actually think they're that useful most of the time. But of course, that's super personal, right? What I find useless might be actually very helpful and practical for your travels. So the point I'm really trying to hammer home here is to not get blinded by fancy sounding features, but rather actually thinking critically about whether or not that feature is going to really enhance your travel experience. And most of the time, for me, the answer is no. So in terms of some features that I honestly just don't think are that useful, in my opinion, in my personal experience, are the bags that have the separate laptop compartment, like the really thin pocket at the front of the suitcase that can basically just fit a laptop and not much else. So to me, my laptop is my baby. It is my work. It has my entire life on it. So I would personally never put my laptop in my suitcase. It's always going to be in my personal item, in a backpack or in a laptop bag. So to me, that's not a super useful feature. And especially these days, because of the fact that bags are getting gate checked all the time, I don't really recommend keeping your laptop inside of your carry-on suitcase. Otherwise, if they force you to gate check your bag, you're gonna have to hold it. So it just makes more sense to keep it in your personal item. Another reason why I don't love those pockets is I've actually heard, depending on the brand, a lot of the time those pockets, the way that they're designed, they're built to kind of sink into the space that's inside the suitcase already. So that means you're actually going to lose some of the space that you have on the interior to accommodate this little pocket for your laptop. So to me, that trade-off just isn't worth it. Other random features that I see are super popular are those USB charging suitcases. So I have to admit, the first time I saw that, I was like, that is so cool. Like now you can charge your phone on the go and it's just in your suitcase. But then I paused and I was like, how often am I realistically going to need to use my suitcase to charge my phone? Practically speaking, having a portable charger does the exact same thing, and it's just a more portable solution than having it tethered to your suitcase. And again, same issue, if your bag is gate checked, then you have to remember, oh, my power bank is in there. Well, it doesn't really make sense, right? So that's just another example of like a fancy sounding feature not actually being all that helpful. I'm also not the biggest fan. I feel like now I'm just kind of griping, but yeah, let me know what your pet peeves are or useless features that you don't love in the comments, because I feel like I'm just like ranting now. But another one is expandable suitcases. Some people are very, very diehard fans of expandable luggage. For me, I've had a few of those and I don't really think they're that helpful for a few reasons. So first of all, if it's a carry-on expandable, unless you really plan to check that bag, it doesn't really make sense because the expandable bit will therefore make it oversized for pretty much every airline in terms of the carry-on restriction. So that doesn't really make sense. And then if it's a checked bag, again, I've had these before, I feel like there's just something in the experience of like wheeling around an expandable suitcase. It doesn't feel as sturdy because obviously that middle expandable bit isn't going to be as solid as the rest of the case. So yeah, I don't know, just like for the sake of a few inches of extra space, I don't really think it's all that worth it. But again, it's a very personal choice. Overall, it's very important you evaluate whether or not those extra features are dead weight or if they're actually going to be useful for you. And I do have to say, very often there are just more practical, inexpensive ways to accomplish what those features accomplish. So not to hate on this suitcase because I do love it and I've used it on so many trips, but something I've never understood about this suitcase is the fact that there is a hidden luggage tag on the back so that in theory, nobody can see your personal information until they need it. And I do think that's cool, I guess, but at the same time, if someone has found this bag and they're trying to locate me, who is going to know that there is a secret hidden flap on the back that you can just like lift up to find my information? That doesn't really make sense, right? So instead of looking for a bag with a feature like that, I'm going to share a really great tip from one of you guys actually, because as I mentioned last month, I do actually have a note on my phone that's just screenshots of genius comments from commenters, because I really do love learning from you guys and I feel like I'm constantly learning new stuff in the comments. So this is what Sarah has said. You can generate a QR code for your contact information. WhatsApp has this. I put this in a luggage card holder inside my check-in, carry-on, and personal item. Genius. So that's just a great example of a more practical way of achieving the whole keeping your contact details private but still accessible. Instead of investing in a suitcase that's got a secret luggage flap, might as well just print it on a card, generate a WhatsApp code, whatever, and have it inside. Thank you very much, Sarah. And if you have any luggage related tips, always leave them in the comments because, like I said, I love to read them. On the flip side though, in addition to fancy but useless features, something else to really look out for when you're shopping for luggage are what I would call very subtle but super useful features that not all companies have. Now, I could talk about suitcase design all day long, but there are definitely some features over the years that I've come to very much enjoy from different suitcases, but they're not universal. And a lot of the time, these are things that you don't consider and you don't actively look for because they're just so subtle. So I'm going to go over a few of these features right now so that you have them in your head. The first one is compression pockets. So these days, most suitcases will have compression straps, those little belts that keep things in their place when they're in movement. So they have those and they can be pretty okay for squishing down bigger, puffier items. But I found actually what's way more useful than just having the compression straps is when there are separate compartments that can zip. And I really do think that this is so useful for compressing items down, especially if you've got any puffy items like sweaters and things. And if you ever have to open your suitcase, it really minimizes things just randomly dropping out and just keeps things more organized. So definitely think these zippered compartments, compressible compartments can be very, very handy and not all companies have them. Another thing I would look for is corner protection. So I love my Delphi suitcase. You probably will see it in all my videos because it's my go-to, but as you can see, this corner here is a little bit dinged up. And so on the carry-on suitcase, they don't actually have any corner protectors, whereas on the checked version of this, which I also have, they do have them. And so I get it. Probably they don't expect you to ever check this bag because it's a carry-on. So what's the point of having corner protectors? But as I keep saying in this video, these days, bags get gate checked so often. So you can't really just guarantee that this is going to make it on board anymore. So that's how my little baby got maimed. I am fully intending on trying to fix it with a heat gun. Wish me luck. Let me know if you have any hacks in regards to doing that. I'm just too scared of ruining it, but Yeah, so look for corner protection. It really does make a big difference. And if you're a hard shell suitcase user like I am, as you can see, another thing to look out for is textured surfaces. Whether you're looking for a textured surface like the basket weave I've got on this Delcy, or any of the suitcases that have those ridges on them, which is super common these days. Very, very important, because as you can see with this bag, which is a little bit smoother, a lot of the time with smooth surfaces, yes, they look smart, but as soon as it gets scratched or dented or anything, it makes it way more obvious. So definitely look out for textured surfaces. I feel like that makes a big difference. It's also easier to clean and kind of conceals any imperfections much better. All right, the next red flag is fluffy and fancy specs. So really, this is like the corporate equivalent of someone using a thesaurus to sound smart, right? Very often when you're looking at websites for luggage companies, they have all these fancy words, these trademark terms, these things that kind of make the thing sound more impressive. But when you peel back the layers, it doesn't actually tell you anything super meaningful. And sure, I will say a lot of the time, if you research these terms, you will find that they do mean something. Like, you know, if they're talking about specific materials, you can look into those materials and then you can compare what polycarbonate shell means relative to its other competitors. But a lot of the time, these terms are just kind of like thrown out there. So I really just want to make sure nobody gets blinded by terms like aerospace grade polycarbonate. Or even funnier when they like add a random adjective. So like my personal favorite I saw is like German aerospace grade polycarbonate. Like, oh, is Germany really good at making aerospace grade polycarbonate? I don't know, but it makes it sound better, right? So don't just get blinded by the fancy language. Do actually consider what that means in practice. Something else that I find really funny is very often companies will trademark certain terms that make it sound really fancy, but in reality, it doesn't actually tell you anything. So this is not a real example. A lot of the time you'll go on a product page and they'll just be like, thanks to our patented Dreamscape Relaxi wheels, this suitcase is a dream to glide through the airport. Like, what does that even mean? I don't know. It just grinds my gears. So do be careful when you see this kind of fancy, fluffy language. It usually doesn't tell you anything. And whenever possible, I do really have to say, nothing will ever beat the feeling of going to a store and actually handling that suitcase, because you can read these fancy terms all you want, but they're not going to compare at all to actually having it in your hands. 5 seconds is really all you need to rattle the handle, glide the wheels, and you'll be able to tell what the quality of that piece is. So whenever possible, get offline, go touch grass and touch a suitcase in person. On a similar note, something else that I find is such a red flag, and I'm actually scared to say this out loud because I feel like it's going to get me in trouble with like big luggage or big suitcase, is overmarketing. Now, I'm sure we've all seen brands that market incessantly on social media. As soon as you're on their website, you get their social media ads for the rest of your life, or you're constantly haunted by sponsored videos from that brand on all forms of social media. I personally see this as a bit of a red flag, not just with luggage, but with companies of all kinds, okay? So with furniture, for instance, I am a brand new homeowner, so I've been looking at a lot of furniture stuff, and without fail, every single furniture company that I have looked into online that has a really crazy, robust social media presence, they've got tons of social media ads and influencers talking them up. Without fail, every single one that I've been to try in real life, as soon as I sit down on the couch or feel the table or whatever it is, I'm like, it's crap. It actually is crap. Like the quality is not good. And it's almost like these things are built to look good on social media, and they spend all their money on their marketing budget and kind of cut corners when it comes to actual quality. Of course, I can't say this is the case for every single brand. There are tons of great brands that I love and support that do advertise on social media. It is the advertising of the future. But I just want to say, don't get blinded by social media popularity as being an actual indicator of quality, because it's all part of a strategy, right? That's how you can take an unknown brand that nobody knows, you pump a bunch of money into their marketing budget, you give a bunch of free suitcases or whatever to influencers, you hit people with a bunch of Instagram ads, and then after a few years, you're like, well, I know that brand name. Like I've heard that brand name before, and you don't realize it's just because you've seen it on social media. It's not because it's actually reputable. It's all part of a strategy is all I'm saying. But yes, on a similar note, another thing I would steer clear of is aesthetics over function. Don't get me wrong, I love a pretty suitcase. In fact, I think the main reason why this has remained my main suitcase for so many years is because it's just so cute. It's just so pretty and cute. I know white's not practical, but it's adorable, right? So I am not above an aesthetically oriented suitcase, but I think where I draw the line is that the aesthetic should never come at the expense of function. And I would argue that some of the new fancy brands, the super popular ones, they really focus a lot on bringing you the coolest new colors and the coolest new partnerships. But what you want to avoid in general are any companies that are trying to blind you with just the prettiness of their product, really nice product photos, and are cutting corners in terms of the actual product quality. If you want a very easy way to see what a suitcase actually looks like after it's been used for a while, a very handy trick I've discovered is actually hopping on Facebook Marketplace or any other secondhand websites so that you can see what that suitcase actually looks like after a few trips. Because trust me, a lot of the time you're going to see that those do not look even remotely close to how good they look in the Instagram photos. Another thing to be wary of is oversizing. So this is actually more of a user error than it is just like a corporate trick, I guess, like the other ones. But very often a trap that I see people fall into is they buy big luggage sets, let's say. They'll buy a set that's got like a large, a medium, and a carry-on suitcase, whatever. And then they end up with this giant checked bag. And I found that usually the checked bags that are that big, it's very easy to overstuff them to the point where they're overweight. But if you have a smaller bag, and you know for sure that if you stuff it as full as possible, it's still going to be underweight, your life is going to be way easier. And also it takes up less space and it's easier to handle when you get abroad. So to me, it's really just a win-win situation. My life truly got way better once I realized a medium-sized suitcase is actually enough for me to fill it with stuff and it'll be just under 23 kilograms. So just my 2 cents. I don't think you necessarily need the biggest possible suitcase unless you are intentionally hauling things that are going to be massive and puffy, like big jackets or anything like that. Most of the time, if you learn to pack efficiently, you can get all your clothes you need in a much smaller, condensed suitcase than you think. And finally, a very big red flag to avoid that I think a lot of people don't realize they should be avoiding is website reviews. So if you're on a website and you see, oh, they've got all these positive reviews, like 4.9 stars, whatever, ignore those. Do not read the reviews on the website. And I say this because, I'm not sure what the consumer protection laws are. I feel like this shouldn't be legal, but I have a very strong feeling that websites are intentionally filtering reviews because there is no way when you go on a website that they'll only have a handful of 1-star reviews. It just doesn't really make sense. So I do think at the end of the day, companies are very much restricting what reviews you can see on the website. And a lot of the time, if there are any 1-star reviews at all, I've noticed that they'll keep the ones that are related to shipping or like, oh, I didn't like the color, so 1 star. But they don't have reviews that give you a very detailed breakdown of what's actually wrong with the product. So that to me is a bit of a red flag. If you have any insight on this, feel free to weigh in. But if you want an honest review, again, I would recommend Reddit. And I would recommend YouTube comments specifically on unboxing videos or on review videos because people on those platforms have no incentive to lie to you. And even on Amazon or Trustpilot, those kinds of websites, it's very easy for you to buy fake reviews and fake comments. So just keep that in mind that website reviews are not to be trusted, to be honest with you, because clearly they are repressing them in some way. I feel like I should put on a tinfoil hat because it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but after looking at tons of websites and reviews, I'm like, there's no way all the comments are positive. And this is a good time to plug actually a new resource I discovered recently. It's a website called RedRex. And it's basically what they do is they aggregate different comments on product recommendations from Reddit. So if you want a beginner base of research, you're curious like, oh, what if people of Reddit deem to be the best vacuum? Then it actually has a list for you and you can look through it and it links to all the different relevant threads, which I find very useful. All right, that was a lot. I hope you enjoyed this video full of red flags and tricks to avoid. Be sure to check out this link for a free checklist and buying guide that you can use in the future when you are shopping for luggage. And again, let me know in the comments if there's a specific brand or suitcase that you are diehard loyal to. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.